Media Research Center is calling on George Soros and his son Alex to denounce Hamas after alleging Soros is donating thousands of dollars to groups that support the terror group. Here's One America's Daniel Baldwin with more.
The Media Research Center is calling out leftist billionaire George Soros and his group, the Open Society Foundations, for funding numerous pro-Hamas grantees. Dan Schneider, Vice President of the Media Research Center, is with us now in studio. Dan, the MRC wrote a letter calling on Soros and his empire to, quote, end its war on Israel and the Jewish people. What does it ultimately mean if this group and Soros can't simply define who the enemy is in this war?
Well, it's probably even worse than that. George Soros and now his son Alex, who has taken over the evil empire, they have defined the enemy, and the enemy is Israel. They have, in word and deed, they have consistently supported Hamas and Hezbollah against the Jewish state. And I know that they claim to be Jewish, but their actions reject the whole idea of a Jewish state.
Now, this letter that you and the MRC penned out to the organization, you list out 7 pro-Hamas groups that you say millions of Soros's, quote, charitable dollars have flowed towards, one of which is the Middle East Policy Network, otherwise known as Al-Shabaka. You say that $550,000 between 2017 and 2021 went to that group from Soros's organization. And just to highlight what this group is about, it released a statement after the initial attack saying, quote, breaching the boundaries of Israel's borders expands the Palestinian imaginary for the possibilities of both resistance and collective freedom. What does it mean that their money is going to a group like this?
Yeah, so George Soros has intentionally and knowingly given money to groups like this. In 2007, he actually demanded that Hamas have a seat at the table when negotiating with Israel and the U.S. He not only funds groups that are pro-Hamas and connected to Hamas, he has advocated for Hamas to be a participant in negotiations. Of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization that has been very clear. It will not be happy until it has pushed Israel off the map, until what we now know as the State of Israel, it would be an Islamic state.
It undoubtedly would. You just highlighted that 07 op-ed that he wrote in the Financial Times, which was titled, America and Israel Must Open the Door to Hamas. And his final argument in that was somewhat chilling. It wrote, quote, the sticking point is Hamas's unwillingness to recognize the existence of Israel. And he claimed that that could be made a condition for an eventual settlement. Given the Soros's grip on American society and its influence, pumping in these Soros DAs, what does this vision and this idea regarding Hamas, what does that mean for American society and the fact that Soros has such a grip on it?
Well, this is just a reflection of his radicalism. And that radicalism has been backed by $32 billion in donations over the years to radical left-wing causes that upend the very society we enjoy. And then his work is international. He is in almost every country with the same kind of radicalized message, whether it's transgender issues or whether it is pro-Hamas issues, on and on and on. He despises traditional values. He despises democracy as we understand it. He puts his money where his mouth is.
Now, Dan, you and Mr. Bozell, the founder and president of the MRC, conclude this message with somewhat of an interesting threat. You write, we assure you that it is not beyond the reach of the IRS to determine whether the Open Society Foundations are meeting their legal obligations to be allowed to continue operating in America. So if they don't come out and completely denounce this terrorism by Hamas, are you calling for the IRS to take action against their organization? Yeah,
and the IRS should. Not-for-profits exist only when they are in compliance with the laws. The Open Society Foundation has a mission that the IRS has improved. I can promise you, supporting terrorism and supporting terrorists is inconsistent with what the IRS would permit. It's against U.S. law. If George and Alex Soros cannot come into compliance with the law, then the Open Society Foundations should have their doors shut.
Well said. Dan Schneider, VP of Media Research Center. Sir, thank you so much for joining us in studio in Washington, D.C. with One America News.
Thanks, Dan.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.